Hey, everybody, welcome to module number one. I am super excited to jump right into the content and get things started. Just as a quick overview, I do want to take some time at the beginning of each module just to walk you through some of the different assignments and things. I think it's kind of important that you have kind of an idea of what those assignments are, some of the things that I'm looking for, and just so to make sure that you're kind of, you got a little leg up before you start working on these things, right? I also want to remind everybody that I do have these posted on YouTube. The link is given to you in Ivy Learn, but they're posted on YouTube. So there's just a little bit more accessibility for you. And as always, if you have any questions about any of this content, please make sure you're reaching out to me so that I can kind of answer those questions and fill in some of the blanks for you, make sure that you're getting started and going in the right direction. If we take a look at when we first go into the module one, you're going to get an overview. Each module starts with this overview just to give you kind of an idea of what's going on there, right? And the big goal of this module will be the research proposal, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, here's the thing that I want to write about. Here's why I want to write about it. Here's my plans and my thoughts. And you're really kind of selling that idea. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. All of these overviews do come with these objectives just to give you that kind of sense of what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing them, and what the purpose or goal is there. So one of the first things that we are going to do that you're going to see in here is this learning activities page. And I really like this because it gives everything to you all in one place, right? Like everything that you want to do, here it is. So we're going to start with this quick little, the writing process, understanding the assignment, then we gather up our ideas and everything, write that draft, revise it, do that proofreading, and then get that feedback so that you can go through that process again, right? And to make a really solid paper. We have a link to all the content that you're going to need here, the readings that you need, any other kind of information you're going to do, like the syllabus or the different readings. You'll notice here that it's lists APA format or MLA format. We are going to use APA format in this class, okay? I'm not saying one is better than the other. I think that a lot of colleges are moving to the APA format. The SAT is moving to the APA format. You're going to start to see that a lot. Typical when we talk about style, APA or MLA, it's about putting your paper into a uniform, standardized format, right? And what that does is that tells the audience, like, hey, here's where to find stuff. If I need to find the author or a source or whatever, they know where to look, right? Another thing I really think is important with style, though, is that when it standardizes things, it also gives the reader a sense that you've done the right thing. Like you went that one extra step to make sure that you are professional, expert, and complete, and you're always thinking of your audience, right? It's that one more step that you did something to do it the right way. So for this class, we're going to use APA. You most often find that in a lot of business, medical, technology type classes where things move on a rapid basis. One of the big things in APA is the reliance on the date in the in-text citations. MLA is often used for like humanities, maybe like English or history. They rely on the name. APA, because they rely on the date and things are rapidly changing and sources are updated and updated and updated or built upon. That's kind of why those areas focus on that. I'm not going to say, again, one is better than the other, but for this class, we'll use APA style. You do have access. There's many sources out there will help you with either one. And if you were ever in a situation in a class that said MLA, there's a lot of things that you can do out there to find that. We also have some handouts and things for you to look for. And one of them I just want to pull up is this CRAP test. First off, it's kind of funny, called the CRAP test, but this is a great way to evaluate your sources as you're doing your research and you're pulling up these resources. This is a really good method for you to help evaluate those. It starts with currency. How new is this information? Now, just because something is new doesn't mean it's great. right? But it gives you a sense of how old it might be, if it was updated, if it's relevant still, right? And sometimes you want to find things that are old, right? Like maybe you want to find a source that describes the problem from 50 years ago or 25 years ago, and then a source from today, and you can compare it. Like, how does that change, right? So just because it's new doesn't mean it's best, but you do want to make sure that you understand how new it is or how old it is, and that you can use it appropriately. Relevance is how important it is for your needs. Does it answer the question? Does it do the thing that you need it to do? And one of the questions, would you be comfortable citing this in your citing this source in your research paper? Obviously, the question we always ask ourselves is, how does this help my audience? How does this help my audience understand this concept or this idea or my proposal or my position, right? How does this help them? Authority is the source of the information. That's who wrote it. That's who sponsored. That's who published it, right? It's all about understanding whose hands were on this. And then because we know whose hands were on it, we can understand what those biases are, right? Do we see that, there's some sort of institutional hand on this, or like the author, like who do we know? Oh, it's this author. What do we know about this author? Well, they think about this, right? They come from this background, or they have this kind of expertise, right? So what do we know about this? Now, you may not have an author on a source, and that doesn't mean it's no good, right? Like there are many sources out there that are very valid that do not have an author. But then you need to make sure that you understand who published it. Okay, just because there's not an author doesn't mean you can't use it, but there's always going to be somebody who published it, who paid to have that printed or published or posted on the internet, or who's hosting it, right? It's very important to understand that publisher, because they're going to provide that credibility that the person, if they're not there, can provide. Accuracy, that speaks for itself. How true is it? How real is it? How correct is it? And can you tell that, right? And that's by the sources, the methodology. How did they find that information? How did they cite the information? What was their rationale or their logical process to find that information? Purpose, and then this is, why was it printed? Why was it put out there? What was the goal of this person or this publisher or this group when they created it? Were they trying to persuade people? Were they trying to inform people? Were they trying to counteract somebody else's? Like, somebody put this information out, they're like, no, here's what we believe in, here's the answer, right? By going through and answering these kinds of questions, you can really help yourself evaluate a source and say, hey, I'm on the right track, and I know this is a good source to use. If we go back to this resources page, I really like this to-do list down here. It gives you a sense of what do I need to do. And it really kind of helps you like plan out your 2 weeks, right? Like each of our modules goes for 2 weeks. There's 8 modules. We'll do them for 2 weeks. It really kind of gives you a sense of how to work through them. It also links to those assignments so you can go over and do those kinds of things. If we jump forward, there's 2 discussion boards that you're going to do. The first discussion board you need to have done by the first Sunday. Okay, so 7 days into this module, within the first 7 days, you need to do this, and this is the introduction. And it just gives you a little, like answer some questions about yourself. So what's going to happen is that, as an online class, we're not going to really see each other, right? We're not going to have those one-on-one conversations. We're not going to be, across the table from each other talking about things. We're going to be sharing things with each other. You're going to post things where you're going to ask for feedback and suggestions and what's your reaction on this. And so this just helps us kind of start that process of getting to know each other a little bit. I do like to remind you, people, that this is an open forum, that everybody can see it. Everybody, you're not posting anything secret that just comes to, the instructor or one person or whatever. This is open, right? So please be very conscious of the type of things that you post about yourself, because we will all be able to see it. Don't share things that you don't want us to know. There's some information here about, kind of things to be thinking about as you put your information together. Feel free to drop in a photo, a school picture, or you in a particular activity, or you doing some of your favorite things. One of the things I always like to emphasize when it comes to discussion boards, this and any of the other ones we do, your posts have to stand on their own. Like when we see it, I have to get it based solely on the reading. Okay, if we were together, if we were in the same room and I asked you a question or you said something, I could ask for follow-up. I could ask for clarification. I could ask for a little bit more information, right? And you don't have that on a discussion board. So I think it's super important to make sure that what you post can and does stand on its own. If you're not familiar with how to use a discussion board, you're going to come down here to the reply section and you're going to click on this and you're going to put, type in whatever you would like to type in. Now down here, you do have two options. One is the cancel that gets rid of your post, and the other is this post reply that goes ahead and posts that. It puts it out there for everybody to see. Unfortunately, there's not a save option on here. Now, what that means then is you might think about going out there and using a word processor like Google Docs or Microsoft Word, type your information, type your post, work through it, edit it any way you need to, use any of those tools that it has, and then copy and paste it in here, right? That is very, very appropriate that you can do. If you would like to put in a picture, you just go here to this image tab and you can upload your image. You can put in a YouTube video and other kinds of content. Okay. But this is just a great way for us to start to get to know each other. And then we get to our first real discussion board. On the introductions, you are welcome to reply to each other and you can hey, that's interesting, or that, ask questions, right? Like that's totally appropriate. But this discussion post is going to be a two-part. You post and then you respond. Okay. So you're going to put up your initial post the first week. So within the first 7 days, you're going to put in your initial post. You'll then have 7 more days, or the second week of the module, to post your responses to each other, right? And again, the discussion board works the same way. The topic then that we are looking at is you're starting to do this research topic and research question development. This is like pre-writing. Now, the value of this discussion board is that you are going to be kind of crowdsourcing. You're going to be putting this out there and saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing. What do you guys think, right? And one of the things that you'll hear me say multiple times over is, we don't know what we don't know, right? And that doesn't mean if there's something I don't know, it's obvious because I don't know it. Well, but we don't know the areas that we're unfamiliar with. Like if I don't know anything about this topic, I don't know what questions to ask. I don't know how much is too much information or not enough information. I don't know how to even get started on this, right? And so this really helps us fill in some of those blank places. So when you post this and here's what I'm thinking about doing, then other people who can ask questions like, what about this? What about this? What about this? I was thinking about this and here's what I think about when I think of this topic, right? So you really get the ability to kind of crowdsource some of that feedback. Now, in your readings, they do talk about this research. That's going out and getting your sources and finding that information. And then the research question. And this is the question that you answer by doing that research, right? On your initial post, what you are going to do in 300 or so words, and I'm not going to count every single word, right? Like it should be roughly 300 words. You're going to identify a problem or controversy that matters to you that you would like to investigate more. And then it gives you some links to some information or some sources to find that for you. There are some ways for you to, like opposing viewpoints, and you can search, debate topics or whatever, right? There's a lot of places for you to do that. And then you are going to answer at least 3 of these questions. Okay. You're going to answer 3 of these questions down here. At least 3. You're welcome to do more, but that you have to do at least 3. And you have to be able to refer back to at least 2 articles from the Opposing Viewpoints database. All right. So what we're looking at is you saying, I've got this idea. Here's a topic I'm interested in. And then you're going to go out and you're going to find some sources to start with, right? You're going to find those sources to work with. And then once you find those sources, you're going to start to think through like, okay, What am I thinking about? Why am I thinking about? What is my goal? What is my purpose? What do I hope to accomplish? Okay. Then you're going to, based on those questions, you're going to formulate 2 to 3 guiding research questions. All right. So in other words, if you're thinking about, whatever the topic might be, making college more affordable, right? So then what you want to think about is, what are 2 or 3 questions that would help me answer that big, broad piece, right? So then maybe it's like, why is college expensive? Or, what are some solutions? Or what have these other schools done? Or what are some options, right? This really helps you get your idea out there and get some feedback from other people to help you kind of finesse that topic into something really strong and usable. Now, then you're going to come in and you're going to find at least one more person to respond to. Now, you are more than welcome to respond to more than one. That is totally appropriate, and that would be awesome, and that'd be really helpful to people. But you find at least one person, and in at least 150 words, you are going to respond to them. Now, things about this. First off, your response isn't like, that's a great idea. I love that idea. We're not just kind of patting each other on the back and agreeing. We're also not getting into an argument. That's a dumb idea, or that's stupid. Or like if I say, I'm into blank, and then you argue something completely different, right? Like this isn't the place to argue that. We're focusing on the topics and what people are writing about. In your initial post, you need to address at least two of the following questions. If I can get that highlighted here. Okay. You have to pick at least 2 of these questions to use in your response. You are more than welcome to use more than 2. I totally appreciate that. And the original poster will appreciate that as well, because you're giving them more feedback to work with. Remember, your posts have to stand on their own, right? Like your posts have to stand on your own. When I go in and I look at these for grades, or when the original poster, there is a little bit of flexibility in that, your post, the original poster could reply back to you like, hey, what do you mean about this? But when I'm grading it, I can't. So your posts have to stand on their own. They need to be complete, full thoughts. And then we get into our big writing task, okay? And that is the research proposal. The research proposal, so you take this topic, like here's a thing I'm interested in, and then you boil it down to a set of questions, okay? What then you're going to do is you are going to propose to me, the teacher, here's my topic, and this is why I want to do it. And you're selling it. It's not an informational piece. This is a, hey, here's what I want to do. Here's why I want to do it. And here's how I'm going to do it. And here's why you should let me do that, right? Like that's the goal. You're selling this to me. Okay. And then, again, here, you define the topic, you make clear why it's worthy, you review the information that you found, you propose that question, and you develop a plan. Like, hey, when I look at that, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You could do this. You've got a plan. You've thought this through. You know what's going on. As you are planning your research proposal, okay, as you are doing it, there's several things to think about. Exigence. Why are you interested in this? What makes this something that's important to you? Now, I always like to remind people why this is important, because if you are too personally tied to the issue, it's hard for you to be objective, right? So it's really important for you to understand what is your connection to it. And then by knowing that, then you can be kind of objective, you can be clear-eyed, and you can be like, okay, maybe this is, or maybe this isn't going to, where are the pitfalls for me? What might get me off track? Kairos, and this is, why should other people be interested in, right? Like what makes it something that other people are going to be interested in? What makes it important to them, or useful to them, or meaningful to them? And then finally, the scope. This is obviously that you have to narrow it down to something that you can research, that it's a specific point, it's a specific area that is well defined and is researchable, but it's not too narrow that it's a yes, no answer, right? Or it's only one little aspect that really doesn't answer the full thing. That's a balancing act. That's definitely a balancing act. In your initial research that you are going to explain, you're going to find at least 4 credible sources, and they must be from the Ivy Tech library databases. So this is not go to Google and find stuff, right? And find, CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and University of whoever, right? Like, no, these are going to be articles from the Ivy Tech library database. One thing that you do need to kind of keep in the back of your mind about the library database. The great thing about it is all those sources have been vetted. They are all credible sources. They're meaningful sources. They're reputable sources. They come from positive places, right? And what that means then is that you don't have to worry about who put that information out. Now you can argue the information in it, right? But you can trust the source. Okay, so that's really important. Then you get into the drafting of the research proposal, right? We've got the topic. We've got the review of the preliminary research. This is where you show us what you found and what you think of it, why it's possible. You show us those guided questions. Who is the intended audience? Who is this relevant to and why? Now, obviously, the intended audience is your classmates and your teacher, but it's more than that. Like if you could give this to somebody, who would it be and why? Your research plan, what are you going to do to find your sources and to be able to write this paper and to know that you have all the information you need. If you get down here to the specifics, I really hate getting into like specifics because sometimes it feels limiting. And sometimes people only do like what they see, like, oh, 3 pages, bam, done, right? Without thinking about, is this fully done, right? So we are going to use APA style. It's going to be 3 to 4 pages in APA style, 12 point, Times New Roman, double space, those kinds of things. We're going to get rid of extra spaces and tabs and whatever. We're going to get rid of all the extra stuff that isn't there. We're going to we're going to edit it for English and style and grammar and all those kinds of things. We're going to use APA to cite the sources, right? To have that reference page. But at the end, what you really are doing is you're using this to sell your topic. This is what I want to do. This is why you should let me do it. And then the last thing that you have is an exercise over avoiding plagiarism in APA. And this just walks you through the process of that style, of those citations, and it kind of tests your knowledge and your understanding of that. Okay. To round things out here, guys, to kind of just put a bow on this, the big thing is that you are, this is the first step in the writing process, and we're going to spend the next several weeks, building this paper up, and we're building up the topic, we're building up the research, we're building up our plan, and we're taking the steps along the way to do this, right? And that's really what this is about. This is the first step of doing that, right? And I really want you to think about it in those kinds of terms. This is my first step of doing that, okay? As you are working through this, please, 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 reach out if you have any questions at all. You see something and like, I don't understand that. I don't know how to do this. How do I start this? If you have some questions about, am I doing this right? Please reach out to me. I am more than willing to, to answer those questions. I do ask that you make them specific, not just throw a doc at me and say, what do you think? Give me those questions. Is my thesis good? Did I cite this correctly? I have a question about, does this flow or something, right? Be very specific in that. We have open office hours that you're welcome to join in. You have my phone number that you can call or text on. That's not a great way of doing it because I have my, like you saw in my introduction video, I'm kind of busy and I've got lots of different things going on. I don't always answer my phone during the day. Email is always the best way to go. Email is always the best way, especially because you can attach a document, right? Like, hey, what do you think of this, right? And I could be answering that. I can also answer it at different times of the day or send those things back to you kind of asynchronously, right? But if you have any questions, please make sure you're reaching out because I don't want you suffering in silence. I won't see the process until you turn something in. So I want to make sure that I am available to you to answer those kinds of questions. Guys, I'm excited about this semester. I'm excited about getting into this content, and I cannot wait to see what you do. And as always, Good luck.